with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Roffman. So, Rich, it's great to have you back. You know, you were not with us last week. I really missed you, but we talked a lot about NAFTA, or the North American Free Trade Agreement, which, by the way, is no more NAFTA. You know, it's going to be kind of hard, you know, to get it in my mind after saying NAFTA for so many years. Now it's the USMCA. I don't know, what is that, the USMCA? Or, I mean, what do you call this?
You know, it really threw me off because when I was a kid growing up in New York City, MCA was a major AM station. So it started having me think of all the disc jockeys I listened to when I was in high school. It had no relevance for me except for that. So now I've got to get used to that because I'm thinking, all right, maybe it's NAFTA 2.0. I can dig that. I can go for that.
But, I mean, what do we have to say USMCA all the time?
It sounds like military, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We're there. We got you. We got you back covered. Semper Fi.
I understand President Trump wanted to name it the USMC, the U.S. Marine Corps, in honor of our great men and women who's in our armed services, who are listening to us right now, actually. But I guess it ended up to be USMCA. It looks to be like a great deal. You know, I mean, there's obviously people are going to find fault in anything and everything, but it looks to be great. Canada, our largest trading partner. I mean, a country of, 30 million people, roughly 1/10 of the United States. We do more business with them than we do with China, 1.5 billion. I mean, this is a very, very important country for the United States.
Well, Neil, how sad would the pancake business be without maple syrup? I mean, come on. This is now going to guarantee that we have a good quality syrup at a very fair price. That's called fair trade.
Yeah. Oh, Tippecanoe and Tyler too, right? You're really digging deep there, bro.
And now from the world of cliche, here's more of us.
Hey, Rich, we're going to bring on right now Ed Mills, who's the Washington policy analyst of Raymond James. Raymond James, a really great financial company, very, very important to our economy. Hey, Ed, welcome to Made in America.
Hey, great to be here.
So what should call it? Is this the USMCA? I mean, have you got a better way of pronouncing it?
No, I think if you want to keep Trump happy, you call it the USMCA. If you want to irritate him, and I think that what you'll see is plenty of folks in D.C. who want to needle Trump a little bit, call it NAFTA 2.0. But Trump is extremely good at marketing, and I think he wanted to move on from NAFTA and having a different name. Some of it is kind of political. Some of it is policy-driven. Actually, if you claim that this is a new deal, you can get it through Congress faster, and you can use his fast-track authority in 3 months versus having to wait 6 months. So a little bit of politics here, but a little bit of procedure.
So great for that. And so tell us, what do you think about what occurred here? And I read a piece, and it was talking about this. And as an American exporter, American manufacturer my whole career, we talk a lot about this all the time, and I missed it. And it was, you were commenting actually in the media this week about non-market economies, and President Trump has said that China is a non-market economy. And in the new NAFTA or the USMCA, there's a provision that says that one of our trading partners, Canada or Mexico, must inform the United States in advance if they're going to enter into any sort of trade negotiations with a non-market economy, read China. And if they happen to enter into an agreement, the United States could just rip up the whole thing and say, hey, you're out. You're out. We don't want to do this anymore. So that's basically putting China on notice that, you're not going to make a deal in North America with anyone unless we bless it.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're seeing here is the art of the deal, that ultimately the end goal is to get a renegotiated trade relationship between the United States and China. What you're starting to see with Trump is that he is racking up trade victories with South Korea, with Japan, now with Canada, Mexico. We might actually be doing EU pretty soon, and you're getting the band back together and trying to kind of have them put pressure collectively on China, and China's going to have a choice. Do you kind of cut a deal with the rest of the world, or do we try to isolate you and we're going to a Cold War with China related to trade issues?
You know, I agree with what you're saying. It is the art of the deal, and it appears having a person in the White House who's a strong business person, strong businessman, many decades of background in negotiating business deals, really, and by changing and shifting the paradigm, it really is producing results. I find it astounding that people still, when I listen to the other side, and they say, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. Well, it's chaotic. Well, we don't know whether we're going to have ups or downs on tariffs. We don't know whether we're going to have a trade war. We don't know what we're really, we're not in control of what's going on out there. We don't have respect in the world, and I think it's diametrically the opposite of that, don't you?
I'm not sure. I think that there is there's plenty of coordinated chaos here. One of the things that, as I talk to folks in D.C., as I talk to people that are in positions of knowing, and I ask them sometimes, what is our end goal? And we haven't always identified that. So what I've continuously tried to do is that I look at the statements that the president has made. I look at the statements that folks in his administration, others have done, and said, what are the key themes here? One of the key themes has been, can we get our allies, or our traditional allies, together in a way to reestablish the trade relationship in the region and with China? The other thing that I think is incredibly fascinating is when you look at each of these trade deals, U.S. energy, LNG exports, oil exports are always a key part of this. And I think that's there for two reasons. One, Trump wants to promote U.S. energy and be the largest exporter of natural gas and of oil. But at the end,
in coal.
We could be in coal. But we're in a situation where at the end of the day, if the United States is supplying China with the energy they need to grow, we're going to link these two economies together stronger than we are today. They already have $1 trillion worth of our treasuries. They need our technology for their innovation. If they need our energy for our growth, that takes the two world superpowers and provides a more stable environment. The counter to that is a harm to the Russian economy, and it's a harm to the Iranian economy. If all of these trade deals have the United States providing the energy to the world, the economies in those two countries are under considerable distress and under considerable isolation, and that is a part of his foreign policy that I don't think gets debated very much out there, that is part and parcel with all of these trade issues.
Well, I think you're right, and I do find it amazing how so many of these different dots are being connected, and we're seeing that under the Trump administration. I mean, he's been very, you just talk about energy, and that's so important. He has been very high on getting something done on the energy industry in the United States, fossil fuel energy industry in the United States. And you're right, which is why he was so upset with Germany for cutting the deal with Russia for their energy needs. At the same time, he's trying to renegotiate the NATO alliance and all the things that were happening with that. But you're right, by getting us involved with energy, making it part of this trade deal, hopefully cutting a deal with China that links them at the hip with us in terms of energy, which means that they need us more than, I need you more than like you. That may work that way. It does put pressure on Russia, both politically in terms of, what we're able to do with these other countries and the leverage that we have. But at the same time, it really puts them in jeopardy with their economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're looking at here is that there is probably also a little bit more risk to this fight than is appreciated, though, is that I've been spending a lot of time with trade experts, and the number one question that gets asked with the China trade fight is who is going to blink first. Neither side is going to blink anytime soon, and right now we're at a bit of a stalemate. So I kind of get some solace in the fact that we were able to get deals with South Korea, Canada, Mexico, others, and that's looking good. As I look at the impact to the U.S. economy, to the U.S. consumer, to the stock market, I do keep a nervous eye to what's going on in China, and that is going to continue to ratchet up and get worse before it gets better. And that's something that we need to kind of be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very fascinating. I really like your ideas here and non-market economies and how that was kind of tucked into the new USMCA, the NAFTA 2.0. So we're going to take care of both sides of the political spectrum by getting both of their nomenclatures in to describe what just happened. This incredible trade agreement that is going to now make America prosper even more. But yes, we got to get China right. We got to get China right. We can't ignore that. All of this inventory and everything that's in the economy right now is going to be sold, it's going to be used, and now products are coming in at a much higher price. It's going to get to the consumer. What's that going to do to profits of American companies? There is a black cloud still above us. We still have to get a deal done with China. It's absolutely necessary. Ed, thanks for being on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to talk about a number of things that impact your jobs that's been in the headlines this week. A lot of really, really important things coming up. You don't want to miss it.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Hey, Rich, we're a manufacturer of all kinds of consumer appliances and commercial appliances. And one of our big customers, a very, very famous American retailer, sent out a letter just recently and said, hey, look, we're not going to accept any price increases because of tariffs. We're not going to accept any price increases because of tariffs. This is a company that you know very well, that everybody knows very well, very omnipresent here in the United States. And their reasoning was that the RMB, the Chinese currency, has depreciated more than 10% this year. And so therefore, since there's been this depreciation of the currency, we're not going to accept price increases because the Chinese currency is worth less, the American currency is worth more. And you're a supplier, so go back to the China factories and tell them you're not going to pay any more than you used to in their local currency. And if you're buying in dollars, get a big discount and pass that discount to us. So it's pretty fascinating what's going on. And we all knew that the China government would use their currency in order to try to offset the tariffs. The problem is that almost all American manufacturers, or American manufacturers who buy components and raw materials, or American dealers, distributors, wholesalers, and manufacturers who buy finished goods from China are buying in dollars. So therefore, this currency devaluation doesn't help you if you're buying in dollars. You got to buy in RMB. But the Chinese only export their products in RMB because they want to get the dollars. So now that's the conundrum. The American customers, big retailers, and the people who are selling American brands who make products overseas, specifically in China, are saying, hey, look, we know that this currency devaluation has occurred. It's now your job to go get it and pass it on to us. Very, very interesting. So what do you think about that?
Well, this is not new. I mean, this is the game that China's been playing all along. I mean, and this is what Trump is running on. And he said, the Chinese are manipulating the currency, and we got to deal with this.
Well, they are. And so
of course.
And so, so if the tariffs right now most of the tariffs are 10% and the currency has been depreciated by 10%, the China government's basically telling its manufacturers, when the Americans come and ask for discounts, we're helping you to give those discounts so you do not forfeit your market that you've worked so hard in so many years and made such a huge investment. And by the way, employs millions of our citizens that, we don't want them to be out of work because now that's going to be a big problem for us. They're going to blame it on us. Nobody's got a job because, we can't get a deal done with America. So now let our currency devalue. And you don't see that story a lot, being played out right now. So China is basically hiding behind their currency. But how far will that go? And I think that's partially why President Trump has said, okay, well, next year, the tariff's going to go from 10 to 25%. So, what's China going to do? Are they going to depreciate their currency by 25%? That's going to get pretty ugly very fast. And then you'll definitely start hearing a lot more about currency manipulation and all of these other things.
Well, as it becomes relevant. One of the reasons you don't hear about currency manipulation is that, A, it's not sexy, and B, people don't understand it. So you have to say things in terms of sound bites. And when you start talking about currency manipulation, which you understand very well because you bring products in from China and you have things going back and forth all the time, you do, mutual business there. you get it, but the average Joe and Jane just don't get it.
Well,
so,
what they
so
do
it doesn't
get-
work for the talking heads on some of the stations like ABC, NBC, CNN, and so forth, where those folks are listening.
Well, what it does matter to the folks, especially on Main Street, that if the cost of their daily necessities and just the things that they want in life, to make them happy, for quality of life, to have a better television, the latest technology and
or as Walmart
audio.
said, you can get sneakers cheaper at Walmart. You can get jeans cheaper at Walmart. You can get products made over there. So families with multiple children in certain socioeconomic strata have the ability to share in the American dream and the products that they want. I get that. And when they start having trouble having that, Neal, then it goes to Main Street, and guess what? All of a sudden they're going to find ways to explain in a very laid terminology what currency manipulation means vis-a-vis tariffs.
Well,
then they'll get it. They're going to get it really well.
Well, what China is doing, they're manipulating their currency to keep American prices low. I mean, isn't that something? The China government is manipulating its currency to offset the U.S. tariffs so the U.S. consumer doesn't have to pay more for their products, so the American consumer continues to buy their products and not go to somewhere else. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how you kind of see these plots and subplots and how all these things are connected. Very fascinating to me. Very, very fascinating. But Rich, let's not forget that over half of what we buy from China are components, raw materials, sub-assemblies that American manufacturers buy to put into their manufactured products for products that we call made in the USA. Now, a made in the USA product has foreign components. I mean, they do. I mean, just about anything you do is going to have, even though it's made, it's engineered, it's produced in the United States, it still has foreign components. A lot of those components come from China. So we are hurting our manufacturing community. Let me tell you, I'm an American manufacturer. I am getting hurt as an American manufacturer, hiring American workers because the cost of my components are going up and nobody can give us any certainty what's going to happen in the future. That is not good.
Well, and that is what, that gets back to the question, who's going to blink first? I mean, you think about that. Is it going to be over here in terms of our the universe that they were buying their products, or is it going to be in China when they're saying, wait a minute, we can't afford unemployment because that's not going to go well for us? So it's really it's an incredible game of chicken, Neal.
Well, yeah, right now there's been a lot of inventories in the U.S. market, so the prices haven't been passed on yet. But those inventories will dry up, and products will be brought in at a much higher price. Hey, Rich, a very great conversation.
That was great.
Coming up, we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about the September job numbers with Mark Hamrick, who's the Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate.com.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neal Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, I mean, trade. I mean, it's such a hugely important thing. And so many jobs are connected to trade. And by the way, our exports pay 5 times more dollar for dollar than our imports do. So it's very important that we export. So it's very important that Americans have a supply chain that they can depend on to get their components and raw materials so we can make things in this country. And China is a very important part of that supply chain. We always must remember that. This isn't all about cheap finished goods. This is about raw materials, components that keeps our factories and the people working in our factories having a job and being able to compete internationally with competitive prices. But the jobs numbers are good, Rich. And you always remind me that the job numbers are good. And, people are working in this country. And they're not only just working, they're working and getting better jobs than they've had in the past. The Obama economy was all about part-time workers, right? I mean, we created jobs, but their problem was they were all temporary, seasonal, part-time jobs. They weren't real jobs. Now we're creating real jobs. Very pleased to have on the show Mark Hamrick, who's the Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate.com. Mark, welcome to Made in America.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So I got a news release here, very, very positive, from ADP, a very large payroll company. They process, millions and millions of
Probably one
payrolls.
of the most well-known group, ADP, Paycheck, those two guys.
And they do ours.
Yeah.
Our employees.
Yeah, I work with ADP.
Their checks all come from ADP. They very much have their finger on the pulse here about what's happening with jobs. And they say in September payrolls up per ADP 230,000. Wow. That seems good to me. Mark, what do you say?
No, absolutely. It's hard to find much not to like about the current performance and trajectory of the job market. We could easily see the unemployment rate dip down to 3.5%. If we get there, that would be matching a level last seen in December of 1969. And, perhaps some of us here are old enough to remember 1969, but my shoe size was much smaller back then.
Yeah, well, that's when
my waist size was much smaller back then.
That's when I graduated with my BA. It was 1969.
Really?
Yep.
The summer of love.
It was.
The summer of love.
It was that. Well, you know what? I think you're 100% correct. When you look at the big picture of what's going on out there, even Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell the other day indicated, and he quoted, a remarkably positive outlook for the U.S. economy, enjoying both low unemployment and inflation, to the point when, a reporter asked him, well, do you think that this is, a remarkably positive, strong, too good to be true scenario? He says, I think that's a fair question. So, and Jamie Dimon made a very strong comment just about 10 days ago. So we are in a remarkable place right now in terms of where we were just 2 short years ago. I mean, the progress has been enormous.
Yes, and I know that there's a tendency to want to sort of pin this on, let's say, the president, or to say that what was not necessarily regarded as robust was the fault of the previous president. I think that to some degree misses the broader point. However, I understand there is a tendency in the environment in which we now live to try to make everything a political point. To give the president his due, obviously he made passage of the tax cut both at a business and personal level a priority. He got that done. He had the cooperation of a friendly GOP-led Congress. Obviously, the administration has made it a priority to try to reduce regulation. Business sees that as very friendly. We'll see longer term whether that causes any meaningful harm to consumers or just individuals, and the jury isn't yet ready to come back on that. But I think that the broader take is that we have both the U.S. economy and the global economy cooperating together in a constructive way. Obviously, we're going to have to, speaking of Jerome Powell, and I was at that news conference, I think, and Jamie Dimon has said this, the chairman of J.P. Morgan Chase as well, there is a risk out, let's say, 12 to 18 to 24 months out, that if the U.S. economy does continue to perform well, there is a price to be paid, and that is higher interest rates, and it could be, and as we speak, the market is having a bit of a mini tantrum because of the rise in bond market yields, but perhaps that's, again, the price you pay for a strong economy. It could be that many people are underestimating what the Fed is yet to do, including members of the FOMC underestimating that, but none of us can possibly know how that will turn out until we get to that point.
What do you think, Mark, about, Rich and I were just talking about this just previously today, about tariffs and what that may do to the job market, because a lot of our manufacturing jobs rely on diverse supply chains, raw materials, components, and so on coming from overseas. China, China, half of what we import from China are exactly those things. And, have we seen the end of this? Because, it's kind of like, okay, the market's going up, but American profits are going to start getting compressed if the cost of manufacturing and components and materials are going up. And that's not going to be good for the job market.
Well, you've outlined that conflict very well. And, for those of us that watch these things closely, meaning perhaps not everyone in your audience watches as closely as we do, the most broad takeaway is that the trade disputes / tariffs have added a level of uncertainty that they had not had to manage through before. Obviously, the apparent resolution of the agreement, which is a successor to NAFTA, if indeed all of that works out as well as, let's say, everyone hopes or most people hope, that takes some uncertainty out of the equation. But clearly, as I think you've already said, the burgeoning disputes with China are essentially potentially huge, and we frankly just don't know how all that works out.
It's really great talking to you. You really analyzed this very well. You explained it very well. We're very happy to have you back on the show. Mark Hamrick, the Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate.com. Hey, Mark, thanks for being back with us. Coming up, we have former Trump campaign advisor Michael Caputo. We're going to talk about what's going on in this country politically and how does that impact your jobs. You don't want to miss it.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffman. Hey, Rich, this is really fascinating to see what's going on politically in our country right now. It's really, really crazy stuff. Just a week ago, we were talking about a blue wave. It was imminent, a blue wave. It wasn't only the House, but now it's the Senate. And, then that means all these impeachment things and all that crazy stuff. Meanwhile, the president's out there creating this economy that we just talked about for the last 45 minutes or so about, all of the wonderful things that's happening with job creation, trade agreements, and so forth. And, our jobs, our entrepreneurs, our small business owners. The amount of wealth that's been created in this economy for just people who have pensions, people are retiring better. So many great things are at risk. But now we're talking maybe about a red wave. Imagine that, a red wave. This whole Kavanaugh thing, I think, has turned a lot of people off. Richard Nixon talked about the silent majority. I think the silent majority has been totally turned off by this wackiness. And maybe that now it's got a red wave coming. Well, coming on the show right now is former Trump campaign advisor Michael Caputo to give us some order in all of this. Michael, welcome to Made in America.
Thanks a lot for having me.
So, Michael, could we possibly see a red wave now?
Well, I was just hoping and praying for the cancellation of the blue wave, so I don't want to ask for too much, but this whole Kavanaugh debacle has really, or at least it appears to have really, blown back on the Democrats. You look at the National Public Radio Marist poll this morning, and all this big enthusiasm gap that was claimed some months back that was going to carry the Democrats onto a surfboard on this blue wave, it seems to have disappeared completely. And if you look at some of the crosstabs and some of the other polls that have been done, it's a lot to do with the whole Kavanaugh thing that they've cooked up. And it's a blowback that nobody predicted. I don't want to say there's going to be a red wave because it's traditional, as you know, that during the midterm elections after a new president's election, the new president will likely lose control of one of the houses or both of the houses of Congress. But, we talk about the deplorables, the people who, you talk about the silent majority. I guess they're called the deplorables now. The pollsters never identified them, and they predicted a Hillary Clinton landslide. But, these deplorables, we were worried that they would not come out in 2018 because they were out as a surprise for Donald Trump, and without the president on the ballot, they might not come out. But his campaign rallies and this terrible problem that the Democrats created in this Kavanaugh confirmation seems to have enlivened them, and I'm hopeful at least we keep the House. I think I'd pray for a red wave, but I wouldn't expect it.
What I find interesting in this whole scenario is the fact that it's Trump. The bottom line is it's Trump. And Trump has shifted the paradigm dramatically in the last election cycle. First of all, going up, in a group of 17, coming out on top of that, and then going after Hillary Clinton, going after the Democrats, going after the rhinos and the never Trumps in the Republican Party, going after all the media. So we're in a different place than we've been in a long, long time in this country. I think you're right, Michael. I think we have so galvanized the deplorable group, and I'm one of them, even though I'm enormously well educated, but I'm a deplorable human being. I have at least 2 ex-wives that'll tell you that. that. So I'm proud of that, as a matter of fact.
Well,
But the truth of the matter is, I think we've galvanized that silent majority. We've re-energized, which I don't think the Democrats were counting on not happening. They did the opposite of that, because now you're starting to see the numbers pumping really good. And by the way, Rasmussen came out today. Trump is over. He's 50% approval rating as we're talking on the show right now. 50% on Rasmussen right now. So we are not, Michael. I agree with you. We're not in the same place. Do I think we're going to have a red wave? God, I hope so. I don't know if I can hope for that. I want to keep what we've got. And I think you've got this country in such a fighting mood to save the country and make it great again and continue making it great again that, we have a really better shot now than we had 30 days ago.
We really do, Doctor. Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Roth. We really do. And I'll tell you what really has me thinking about this. We see the tax cuts. We see the tariffs. We see the things that everybody thought was, these tariffs, oh, my gosh, Republicans hated them. Look at the tax cuts. Right now, if you look at Job Creators Network, a great organization, they say in a recent poll that by a 10-1 margin, American small business owners support these past tax cuts, and they're the ones creating all the jobs. They're absolutely creating the jobs. And the problem that the Democrats have is they're working with the same old model, that if they divide and conquer, if they try to worsen the tribalism in America, if they destroy a good man, Judge Kavanaugh's reputation, make his whole family cry during hearings, if they wipe out his reputation, it'll enliven their people and drive them all to the polls. I think part of the problem the Democrats have is they've lost touch with their own party. They don't realize that there are a lot of what we might call out here in Western New York Reagan Democrats who are actually part of the deplorables. And here we are today. We're at, I think, 0-0. We're at a dead heat in this. It's probably 35 congressional races that really are going to decide everything. There's no red wave. There's no blue wave. I believe it's a fist fight in all 35 of those congressional districts.
And, Michael, I think that, as you said, that the Democrats have totally misjudged. They misjudged the judge. And this is going to have a blowback of huge proportions. And, right, it's just a few seats. But when you see now New Jersey's Senate seat is in play. The Republican challenger in New Jersey is down just a couple of points. Minnesota's in play. Very fascinating to see what's going on. It's going to be a really wild first week of November. Michael, thanks for being on the show. You've been a terrific guest.
Well, thank you so much. You gentlemen have a great day. I'd love to come on again.
Yeah, we're going to get you back. You can bet that. Michael Caputo, former Trump campaign advisor and a very, very passionate American. Thanks for being with us, Michael. Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day, and we are also very passionate Americans.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rubman. Hey, Rich, I just mentioned about a Senate race in the great state of New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. I love the state. It's a wonderful place. I grew up actually in northwest New Jersey in Morris County.
I know it well.
A beautiful place.
I had a house there.
Very beautiful. Lake
Hiawatha.
Lake Hiawatha.
You were in Lake Apacon, bigger lake, bigger lake.
And
lake.
This is like really bragging rights. Lake Apacon is the largest lake in New Jersey.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous. A lot of people went there for the day.
In most other states.
Bertrand's Island was there.
Oh, my goodness, Bertrand's Island.
I used to go there.
My goodness, Bertrand's Island. We love Bertrand's Island. It's gone, though. It's gone. It was one of the, but you can go and Google it, and you can see that old rickety roller coaster that actually caught fire. And I rode it a zillion times as a kid. But anyway, there's another New Jersey senator that's was that Spartacus? Oh no, that's Senator Booker, right? Senator Booker, and he said this week, and look, this guy, he's serious about running for president, and he's talking about
scary
Judge Kavanaugh, right? And he says, well, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore if he's guilty or not, if he's done it. I mean, look at all these accusations. Look at all of this talk in the chatter. Look at all of this sort of commotion that we that we created. I mean, if he's guilty or not, what difference does it make at this time? It wasn't about the truth. The truth no longer mattered. It was about the spectacle. It was the spectacle that mattered. So you're going to crucify somebody who has worked so hard in their career, a beautiful family, with their family there, and truth doesn't matter. It's because of the spectacle that we've created. So therefore, let's trash this guy, let's throw him to the waste bin, and let's move on with somebody else. So this is the country that they perceive.
Well, I totally agree with that. And I think that probably the scariest thing that has come out of this whole Kavanaugh scenario that we've been watching for the last few weeks is the fact that the Democrats could say, look, the presumption of innocence no longer exists. Well, we don't have to have that with Kavanaugh because, after all, this isn't really a jury trial. This is more of it's an allegation, checkup scenario in the Senate. And therefore, he looks guilty. Or the allegations look bad, or there are so many allegations,
or he fought back,
when they can't win on those other points, and they say
doesn't have the temperament to be on the Supreme Court,
and he drank a lot of beer
in college,
and he threw ice,
but he doesn't have the temperament because he had the nerve to fight back against all of these accusations, and therefore he doesn't have the temperament to be on the court.
So therefore he's guilty. Therefore, he should be resigning. After all, Joy Behar said, I know he's guilty. They all said that. I know he's guilty. He's guilty because he's a guy. And the Me Too thing is saying, you've got to believe any female who says what happened to the guy, you got to believe the female. So the presumption's out.
Who was a senator in Hawaii? Was it Hawaii?
Yeah.
And she says, all the men should just shut up.
Shut up.
Just shut up.
Just shut up because you're a man.
Yes,
all right? We know better.
You no longer have a voice in this country.
See, this is what made Monty Python so successful. Scenarios like this. That's what made them successful. And
did that come from Monty Python? That sounds like it could have come from Monty Python.
The whole thing could come from Monty Python, where they're saying, are there any women here at the stoning? Any women here? No. They forgot because they're wearing fake beards. No, there's no women. There are no women. But you know what it comes down to? It comes down to, and this is what Spartacus, Spartacus Atticus, known as Booker in the Senate, really comes down to the fact that it's the image that's created by the media, which obviously they controlled, really defines what you think of somebody. And that goes back to the movie The Matrix.
The Matrix is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
And the point of the matter is, in The Matrix, the truth is relevant. The truth is what it needs to be. The truth is malleable. The truth is the agenda. And if you don't fit into the agenda, in The Matrix, you disappear. The guys come with the glasses and you're gone. You're zapped. What do you think it is right now, Neal?
Well, I don't know. I really, really don't know. All I want is that this whole chapter, this sad chapter in our country, we kind of leave this one behind, and let the American people weigh in on this. And they're going to do this very soon. And we don't know what they're going to do. But I believe they're going to get it right. And they're going to send a message. They're going to send a message that this behavior is totally unacceptable. And that's what I believe. But hey, look, stay tuned. I'm sure you and I are going to be talking a lot about that. We're going to have a lot of fascinating guests on our show to continue to think about these very important issues and what it means to our economy and our jobs and our prosperity, our strength, and our pursuit of happiness. Rich, on that note, we're out of time, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But we're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.
What difference at this point does it make?